Still with us, Austin Rasmussen from Republicans Abroad, still here in the studio. And I'm also joined by Ahmed Bedier. He's the president of United Voices for America and a civil rights advocate within the Muslim American community in Florida. Katie will join us again later on, Katie Solon. Ahmed, Muslims happen to be at the heart of this from the very beginning because of Trump's comments about the Muslim ban. There'll be a complete and utter shutdown, a total ban. That changed to extreme vetting. Now it's a sort of, well, we're just going to make sure that no terrorists come into our country. Do you still believe that Trump's an Islamophobe?
Yes, I do. I mean, he's the one that said Islam hates us. He's made repeated statements about the Muslim ban and the threat of Muslims and has doubled down on it. Not only him, but we're also concerned about many of his supporters. Look, when it comes to foreign policy and the U.S., the decisions that the United States makes and the impact of the United States not only impacts Americans, but people around the world. And America, especially when it comes to the Middle East and the Muslim world, they need Muslim allies. And Trump has alienated just about all the Muslim allies out there.
Okay, but on the flip side of this, let's turn this around now. So he said stuff that upset many Muslims, right? On the flip side, she's seen as the globalist, the warmonger. She has more of a record of going to war than he has because she's been in office. And there's this weird place where from both the left and the right, you have people coming together saying Trump will be better for world peace because he'll be talking to someone like Putin. He'll be talking to world leaders. He's not going to go to war. Clinton's the warmonger.
If Trump's foreign policy is anything like his domestic policy, it's going to be a nightmare, not only for America, but for people around the world. Sure, Trump hasn't gone to war because he's never been in office before. But we've seen how he has dealt with people within his businesses, within other minorities in America. And if that plays out to the rest of the world, it's not going to be good. What he has said about foreign policy, he says he basically adopts Putin's, Russia's foreign policy approach, and look what's happening in Syria. Sure, Hillary Clinton, and she's not my favorite candidate. However, she's more predictable. She's more likely to carry on Obama's foreign policy, maybe with the exception of Syria, for example. Sure, she voted for the war in Iraq, but she said it was a mistake. She is more predictable. Donald Trump, on the other hand, he's unpredictable, which makes him very dangerous, and he's cozying up to all these authoritarian regimes and dictators, and that's who he seems to be cheerleading
Clinton
for.
Foundation gets money from Saudi Arabia and so on, right? I mean, she's hardly clean, is she?
Right, none of the U.S. presidents, let's just face it, when it comes to foreign policy, there's not necessarily going to be a lot of changes with either candidate. What we do know about Hillary Clinton is that she was a Secretary of State, she has that experience, she knows the world leaders, and she's more predictable than Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is basically a big, huge risk when it comes to foreign policy.
Austin, a big risk. He's unpredictable, he's dangerous. That's what Ahmed thinks. What do you think?
I think if Donald Trump becomes president, he will be the type of president that focuses more on domestic policy. I really don't think he has any interest in interventionism or nation building or these types of exercises or activities that we are in the Middle East. Hillary Clinton, I do think that if she should become president, we are looking at someone who's assuredly going to continue war within the Middle East. We can look at the situation in Libya just as an example. Former Secretary of Defense Ash Carter said that when Obama was on the fence about bombing Libya, it was Hillary Clinton that pushed him over the edge to go and do so. And then we bombed Libya, it resulted in Gaddafi's death, and now we're looking at the textbook definition of a failed state.
Let's not forget, it was the Republicans that were also cheering on the war in Iraq. This was this was led by George Bush, and they were also cheering on the intervention in Libya. They only started, complaining about it. What happened when Benghazi happened? It was mainly for political reasons. But let's just get back to this. The main killers.
It's the same Republicans that aren't endorsing Donald Trump too, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So I mean, when it comes to foreign policy, I think again Hillary Clinton is more predictable. Donald Trump is unpredictable, which makes him dangerous. But he's adopting, whether directly or indirectly, he's supporting what Russia is doing in Syria, which is a lot of killing. It's in a way a proxy war that's happening there.
Austin, can you honestly say that here's a man who didn't know who General Qasem Soleimani was, the head of the Quds Force. He didn't know the difference between Hamas and Hezbollah in his interview with Hugh Hewitt. He's somebody who shows scant regard for NATO. Does any of that worry you?
Well, I mean, It definitely worries me to the regard that, of course, you know, I want someone in office who does have a good grasp of foreign policy and a good grasp of foreign relations and, you know, geography and world leaders and these types of. Of course, in that regard, it concerns me. But then on the other side, not having a familiarity with this, I mean, not every president or not every person who runs for the office knows everything about everything. And one thing that, again, this is where I said when I voted for Trump, it was with reservations, and one reservation is the hope that if he should win and become the president, and I think that he will, but surround himself with experts on these issues, surround himself with people who do know what they're doing, who can advise him what the best and smartest moves are. When we look at Russia, for example, I have to disagree. I don't think he's fighting, he would fight a proxy war through Russia. He did say, why can't we get along with Russia? And I don't think he really sees any particular good reason.
What's wrong with that, Ahmed? I mean, Obama made peace with Cuba, made peace with Iran, wanted to press reset with Russia many years ago.
Russia is doing everything to undermine U.S. policies around the world. They're trying to edge and compete with the United States in the Middle East to take more advantage of the vacuum that exists there, because Obama has had this hands-off approach. Because of, unfortunately, Obama's lack of participation or engagement within a situation in Syria, Russia stepped in and changed the game there. So they are competing there. They are trying to undermine what we're doing there, and it's causing the death of many people. They're not just supporting Assad, they're actually bombing people within Syria. But let's just,
but what if Hillary Clinton becomes a President Obama on domestic policies with more teeth on foreign policy issues and becomes the president who also bombs people in Syria?
You know what? Clinton and the Democratic Party, they're more likely to listen. Trump and the current Republican Party, they would just not even respond to pressure. So even if Hillary is in office and she wants to go down that track, there's enough people out there, grassroots movements, that can put pressure on her to try to influence her decision and avoid going to war. But it comes back to also, it's not just good enough to surround yourself with experts. You also have to have the right temperament. And we've seen if somebody is able to be baited by Twitter, imagine being able to be baited to nuke somebody. And these are not comments that we're making up. These are things he actually said that he would do. So I think it would be a disaster. And I think, especially for countries in the Middle East that think somehow that Trump would be better off for the Middle East and foreign policy, I see where that may be a way to actually see it that way. Right. But really, in reality, he's unpredictable, and there's nothing that says that he might actually be some sort of pacifist.
Austin, do you trust the system to constrain his volatile temperament, the one that gets angry on Twitter? Do you trust that system to constrain him when he has the nuclear codes?
Absolutely. As I mentioned earlier, I think this was one of the aspects of Trump that made it easier for me to vote for him, one less reservation, so to speak, in the way that because he is so disliked by the establishment on both sides of the aisle, he is going to be held accountable. They're not going to let him get away with anything. And they're going to be looking for these reasons to hold him accountable and to, let's say, look for a legitimate reason to impeach him even before his first term is over. But at the very least, the Republican Party doesn't like what he's doing and they can't find some reason to do that, then we're looking at another Republican president in 2020.
This is the same party that could not stop him. They could not stop Trump, and he didn't care about anything he said. Even John McCain, the most decorated Republican, he didn't care.
But this isn't
not going to rein him in.
This isn't about the party stopping Trump. Sure. This is about the system stopping Trump. This is about the congressional, the executive branch, the legislative branch, the judicial branch. This is how our system is set up in the United States.
And let's see if the system works. If he wins, I've got to jump in because I need to take a break. Do stay with us. We'll be back in just a moment.